Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey everybody, this is Leah Holt, resident grant guru with Get Fully Funded. So glad you guys can be here with us today. If this is the first time you're joining us for a webinar, welcome. We're happy to have you here with us. If you've been with us before, welcome back, welcome home. That's what I like to think. So Sandy is here with us today. Sandy, you want to hop in and say hi real quick?
Sure thing. Hey, everybody. We're glad you're here. Leah is in the driver's seat today, and so please I don't even want to say be nice, participate. We're going to several places for you to interact, and she's got a lot of great information, so definitely take advantage of all of it.
Excellent. Thank you. So yeah, she's going to let me take this one solo today. So you guys are all mine for like the next, 1 hour, 59 minutes, something like that. So we have an awesome webinar planned for you today, and we're going to be talking about getting grants when your nonprofit is young. So we'll be talking about things you can start doing now to set you on the right path to getting those big bucks coming in the door. And I don't mean deer, I mean dollars. And so even if your nonprofit isn't very young, and it's been around for a few years, I think you'll have a few takeaways and you'll probably snag a few tips too. So before we get started, let's do a quick tech check and make sure everything's working like it's supposed to. So if you can hear me, and you can see my slides okay, jump into the question box there and let me know, or the chat box. Either one. Alrighty, hang tight with me just a minute. Thank you, Kristen. Everything is good. Alrighty. Thank you. Alrighty, so what I'm going to encourage you guys to do as we go along, ask questions, because we're going to have an opportunity at the end to answer some of those, take plenty of notes. And I find what I like doing when I'm on webinars is to do a few things for myself to help me focus. And one of which, I have to shut my door because I get distracted kind of easily by things that's happening outside my door. And I also like to set my phone on silent and set off to the side. And also I'm horrible about having web browsers open and sitting there working or doing something like that when I'm on a webinar. And honestly, if I'm going to take this time to honor myself and that time I've set aside for learning, I want to do that. So that's just a few things I do. So ask questions, take plenty of notes. There's a tab that's got some handouts in them. There's lots of good resources to help get you started with things, a few checklists, and a couple worksheets. All right, well, we got a lot to cover, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. The first thing I'd like to start off with, though, is telling you a little bit about myself so you can know who you're dealing with, who I am, and what my experience with grants has been. And so I've been with Get Fully Funded for a little over a year now. It seems a lot longer than that, but a little over a year, started in October 2017. And some of you may know me from past webinars we've done or the Q&A sessions or what we're now calling the coaching zones. And I try and get in Facebook a lot and interact with you guys. And people often ask me how I got started with grants back in the day. And I find I really can't give them a quick 30-second elevator speech because it happened to me so unexpectedly. But I do want to share with you an abbreviated version of that today because I feel like you'll see that I honestly didn't have a clue what I was doing when I started working with grants. And, you know, just like anyone, I had to start somewhere. We all have to start somewhere. So here's my story. So it's about late 2007, and after about a decade of retail management, I landed my first job in the nonprofit world, and I was working for Habitat for Humanity in Nashville, Tennessee. So I was doing their database management, providing a lot of fundraising support, and one of my roles was to support the staff grant writer. And so I had jumped in, helped her with maybe like 2 simple grants, but you know, she did most of the work. I just helped with a few things. So they were funded. We were excited, we high-fived, and that's how I initially got my toes wet. But my story doesn't end there. So shortly after that, that same grant writer decided she wanted to up and move back to California, and she only left us with 2 weeks notice. Okay, so now there are 2 huge things going on at Habitat right about the time that this happens, and it makes it a super interesting situation. So first off, we were in the middle of a $10 million capital campaign, and they've been working on this since before I started, and grants were playing a major, major role in it. I'm talking like millions of dollars. And then the second thing was, the year at this point, it was 2008. Do any of you guys remember the Great Recession that was going on? So it was during this time that the United States was suffering from one of the worst financial catastrophes since the 1920s. And it wasn't the best of times for sure, to be a nonprofit relying on people's willingness to give money. So needless to say, things were nuts for us. And now we were down a grant writer. So we had 0 grant writers. And there were proposals that were needing to get out, as soon as possible. So my boss comes to me one day, she's CEO, and she comes and she says, hey, you wrote a couple grants recently and got them, didn't you? And I said, yes, ma'am, I did. She said, well, we need you writing grants. We need you to start tomorrow. Can you do that? And I thought to myself, okay, well, first off, thank you. Thanks for the confidence and thanks for the opportunity. It seemed kind of desperate because they didn't seem like they wanted to go out and hire somebody. And I thought, this is a $19 million organization. They build 50 new houses a year, making it one of the largest habitats in the country. We're in the middle of a capital campaign. And to top things off, there's an economic recession going on that's affecting just about anyone and everyone out there. Do I want to start writing grants? And so, of course, you probably figure what I did. So what did I say? I said, absolutely. Sure, I can. Challenge accepted. And so that's how my grant career started. It was very, very unexpected. And to top it all off, added bonus, the economy was in the toilet. So that was my story, but I worked hard and I learned lots and I did survive. And after 11 years and millions of dollars of grants approved, I'm more than happy to share with you guys what I've learned because I don't want you to be in the dark like I was when I first started because it's a long road. It's a really long road. And that saying about being thrown to the wolves, that's where I was. And I don't want that for you guys. It's no fun to be there. Okay. So I'm hoping you guys are with me. And so what I'd like to do right now is take a moment to get to know you a little bit because I'm curious who's out there with me, and asking you a few questions helps me understand a little bit more about you and how familiar you are with grants. So we're going to hop into a poll real quick, and give me just a moment here. All right. I'm hoping you guys can see my screen. Sandy, can you hop in and tell me if you can see my screen, please?
Yes, we can see the poll.
Okay. Excellent, excellent. So if you guys would take just a moment here and click a few buttons or make a selection here. So if you've never written a grant, go ahead and click the little box there. And if you have written a grant, but it's never been funded, go ahead and click that second one. And then lastly, if you have written a grant and it was funded, congratulations, by the way, go ahead and click that bottom button. So we'll give you just a minute here. Let the last couple answers come in. All right. All right, let's go ahead and close it. Share, and you guys should be able to see that now. And it looks like about 33% of you guys have never written a grant before. None of you have written a grant and it wasn't funded, but there are some of you on here that's written a grant and it was funded. So super awesome. Thank you for sharing that with me. And like I said, for those of you who have never written a grant, or if you have written a grant and it was funded, I still think you're going to learn a lot from what we have here for you today. All righty. So we'll go ahead and jump in. So grants can be an excellent source of revenue. Sorry, hold on a minute. Let me get my slides caught up with me. Hang tight a second. Hang tight a second. Here we go. All right, there we are. So grants can be an excellent source of revenue for your nonprofit to pay for things like salaries or supplies and materials for your programs, and you can even use it to keep your lights on. In fact, grant making is part of a healthy, diversified revenue stream. As you can see by this graph here, the things you do as a nonprofit to bring in revenue should consist of different strategies like fundraising events and donations and program revenue. But grants are not a magic bullet. that will solve all of your problems. Okay, so contrary to popular belief that grants are quote unquote free money, they come with lots of responsibility and accountability, and both of which your nonprofit needs to be sure it's prepared to, or both of which, you know, the responsibility and accountability, you guys need to be sure that you're prepared to handle the grants. Plus, grants are unpredictable. You know, you might get one year, but then not get one the next. And you can never be certain how much you'll get because a funder may choose to give you less than what you asked for. If there's one question we hear more than any other from newer organizations and startups or folks who have underfunded nonprofits, it's the first one here. How do I get grants? Of course, this is usually followed up with a question, and where do I find grants? Okay. So those are completely fair questions, and really they're good ones to ask to get you started. You know, those were a lot of the questions too, the biggest questions I used to ask when I first got started as well. The cool thing is though, the answer to these questions are actually key to getting you started down the right path to getting grants. And that's what we're going to explore here today. Anytime I'm approached by folks about how to get grants, these are the first two things, the readiness and the research. These are usually the first two things that I explore with them. The readiness is a process that gets you prepared to deal with grants. And on the front end, that helps you pull together and get what you need to submit an attractive, competitive grant request. On the back end, it sets you up for success for when you're awarded a grant and helps you manage everything that you need to do. The research is also another process, and it's one that helps you understand how many grant opportunities are available out there for you and what they look like, and it also helps you decide how much of your resources that you want to invest in your grants. And so when I say resources, like people who are writing the grants or the time to do the grants. So it's best to know what's out there for you before you just go diving into writing things. So we're going to go ahead and get started with readiness first. And so I like to think of readiness as a way to get your ducks in a row. Okay, so it's making sure all the right pieces are in the right place and in the right order, and that you've thought through your programming, and that the impact, you've thought through the programming and the impact that it's making toward the problems you're trying to solve in your community. And also that you can articulate that to your funder. And you can articulate it really, really well. So we find that these are the 4 places that can make or break you when it comes to grants. So compelling missions / case for support, high quality programs, efficient operations and systems, and sound financial management. Having these areas squared away and buttoned up really shines through in your grant requests, and it helps your nonprofit look trustworthy. Okay, so if you notice now, the first 2 are focused on what you do as a nonprofit. The last 2 are focused on how your nonprofit is managed, or how you manage your nonprofit. So while funders want to be inspired by what you do, and they care about your mission and they care about your programs, they also want to make sure you're responsible with their money. Okay, so we'll go through each of these sections, and I've included in these upcoming sections real questions that I pulled from real applications. And so I'll give you a few tips as we go. And so if you just keep in mind that these are questions that will likely be asked of you in grant applications, and you'll have to address them when you submit a grant request. Alrighty, so the compelling mission and a case for support. So what makes a mission really compelling is about 3 different things. So it's the why and the how and the who behind things. So why do you do what you do? How does it help? And then who does it help? So funders want to see that what you're doing makes a difference. It fills the gaps in services, and it provides and that you provide missing services in the communities. So to do that, you have to paint a picture for the funder, and you have to help them visualize what the need looks like that you're trying to impact. Okay, so with this question, can you concisely describe and quantify the problem or the need your nonprofit is addressing? When you try and do this for a funder, you need to make sure that you focus as locally as possible in your community, because you want to show them not just what it looks like nationally, unless you're serving folks nationwide, but what it looks like in your community. And so when you look at the problem, what is the negative condition that exists out there? When I was with Habitat, it was, housing. Housing was one of the top 5 issues in the community. And also when you look at the needs, what's the difference between the problem and the need? The problem is that negative condition, but the need is actually the prevalence, and the severity of that problem. So in Nashville, when I was with Habitat, it was these things like the skyrocketing cost of housing and real estate there. Like that was a need that needed to be addressed, because the values were just going through the roof and nobody could afford houses. And as a result, there were lots of nonprofits that were focused on affordable housing. So you've got to take some time to do research and find data and statistics that support what you're posing as your statement of need. And so lots of times, like when I was in Nashville, there was a community needs assessment, which is like a 150-page document that the Metropolitan Social Services distributed. So there are lots of things like that out in the community. Then also with the demand, so you need to make a compelling case for your programs or your organization. And again, using these statistics and these stories, you want to focus on things like, what is the result without your program? So if you weren't there to provide what you serve or what you do, what would be the problem? So you'd have, for instance, more people needing houses, or more homeless animals, or fewer people learning to read. But then you also have to show them too that versus what is the result that your organization is providing. So, more dogs finding happy homes, and, more people in happy homes, things like that. And then what happened that led to the creation of your organization? Everybody wants to hear your origin story. Make it brief, make it concise, but make it tell the point. Funders are always interested in hearing those. And then this last one, what are the reasons why someone would give to your nonprofit? This is kind of a little bit more of one that is a point to ponder. This is one that gets you thinking through your impact and through what it is that you do, and gets you going, why would somebody want to give to us? What do we do that's so special and that's so great that makes them want to give to us? All right, next on the list is high quality programs. So funders want to see impact and change. They do. They want to be inspired. And so it can be presented, what the funders want to see can be I swear my tongue is just twisting. It can be presented in various ways, like a program description. By the way, the next webinar we're doing, which is on the 21st, I think we're going to be talking a little bit more in detail about programs. But for now, so make sure you hop on that one. But for now, let's just explore a few questions that will get you thinking a little bit more about your programs and to put things a little bit more into perspective. So who else is providing the services and the programs that you're offering? This really speaks to the collaboration and partnerships, and talking about who you team up with to do the similar work that you guys all do, and the different roles that each person plays. Then also funders like to see, if you're duplicating a service, because they don't like giving to the same type of organizations in the exact same work. Like they want everybody doing their own thing. And so again, this just kind of speaks to that collaboration, partnership, and it's helpful to explain to the funder, how you differ from all the rest. Which brings me to the next point, why or how is your nonprofit unique or different? You have to set yourself apart from the rest of them, and, letting them know, like, there's no other nonprofit in town who does what you do. And of course, they also want to know, who are you helping? So defining your target population or your beneficiaries, also defining your geographic service area, unless you tell them what exactly the area that you're focusing in on, they may not know. And then also just, statistics and things like socioeconomics. So, any of that helps support and describes who it is that you're helping. And you also need to give funders proof of your success and show them what you know. And what I mean by that is show them that you know that your solution is effective and that it makes an impact on the community in measurable ways. So, and I want to make a point here. If you are a new organization, if you're a new nonprofit, at this point, you probably don't have a lot of numbers, to share with a funder. So don't forget that you probably did a lot of work leading up to like actually getting your 501c3. So don't forget to talk about those activities and those accomplishments, okay? But generally with these measures, it's the numbers that you're looking for. So this is where it's important to start collecting data so that you can share with your fans, with your funders. And then once you have all those, you can begin to show the funders how you're investing in solutions and how they're investing in solutions that work and make a difference. So nonprofit success demonstrates a cause and effect relationship between the community problems and the results of the nonprofit's program. So if you're successful doing what you're doing in the community, then it should have an impact on the problem that's out there. And so a lot of this is usually evidence what you can provide to the funder, things like testimonials or information that you share in websites and social media. So snapshots of things like that, pictures, all that is super helpful too to funders. And then in terms of the impact that you're making, so if you look a little bit farther past the people that you're helping or the animals that you're helping and those outcomes that you're achieving, what larger impact are you making? And so things like this is usually evidenced when you see things like policy change or new laws that are being set, things like that. So you're trying to focus on what conditions or what status is changing in the community. Like what is happening, what is occurring, what is changing, what's different. All right, cruising right along. Efficient operations and systems, not the most exciting thing out there, but I'm telling you, they're super, super important, all right? And why are they important? They're important because you have to have them to manage an effective organization. Okay, so the operations and the systems give people at your nonprofit the information that they need to support your mission. Okay, so for grants, it shows that you're responsible, that you're set up to manage things properly and that you have the capacity to carry out the grant activities that you proposed in your application or your request, and that you can reach the results that you're aiming for. So a few different systems, so an accounting system. What accounting system do you use? So, some people might still be doing pencil and paper type things, but, it's always good to have, QuickBooks or Little Green Light or things that are automated and that can do a lot of the work for you. Sometimes funders will ask this. It's not the most common question, but sometimes funders will ask this. And they want to know if you're following the GAAP principles or the generally accepted accounting principles. And so all a GAAP is basically a set of standards and kind of a commonly accepted way to record and report your accounting information. Okay, so essentially an organization that follows GAAP principles, and it shows a funder that you guys are communicating your financial information essentially in a very standard way. And of course, a lot of funders want to know if you do independent reviews or those audits, those annual audits that seem to cost a lot of money. And sometimes these are required to apply for grants, not always, but sometimes that is a way that is a criteria that a funder uses to separate, the people who are newer and younger from the ones who are a little bit more experienced and have a little bit more, who are more experienced. And then donor databases, so it's important to keep up with your donor transactional information. And so like record details, it's grants, you can input the history of giving. And, even nowadays the systems are so advanced that, you can capture all kinds of notes and share it between your team members and all that stuff. So, and are your facilities sufficient to carry out your activities? So the funders want to know, and they want to ensure, do you have appropriate office spaces? If you're managing these programs, where are you managing these programs? Is it in a church? Is it in your own facilities? Where is it? And wherever that is that appropriate? And are you setting yourself up for success? So if you're running, make sure things are ADA accessible, make sure it's safe and it's secure. And so, so your operations and your systems, even though it's all kind of working behind the scenes and it's not the sexiest of things, it is super, super important to funders, and they do see all of that through your applications. Alrighty, and again, not another fun one, but sound financial management. So we all know finances are the core of every business, okay? So this all helps you demonstrate your ability to operate soundly and with transparency. And so that means having a solid history of good finances and good management of those finances, and timely and meaningful disclosures. It's like reports of your financial performance, okay? And so budgets, you look at budgets, they're the financial framework that essentially serves as the basis for all of your organization's financial decisions, okay? A realistic budget ensures that an organization can find that it can fund its commitments, and that you can control spending, okay? So with this, do you guys do you have an organizational budget? Have you taken the time to create that? And with the organizational budget, a lot of times, you're doing your program budgets and you're looking at all your other overhead, and you're looking at your fundraising, and all those different types of numbers are going to go into your organizational budget. What financial reports are you reviewing each month? So again, this is one not necessarily that a funder asks for, but this is a good one for you to think about and to explore and figure out how you guys do things at your organization. And I've always said that if there was one person, in my top two, one person I could afford to hire if I had my own nonprofit, it would be somebody who is very, 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 very good with numbers. Because even though I'm good with numbers, I'm not good with numbers like in the accounting way or in this way that these people do this. So having a good person or not a good person, but a person who's good with numbers, you sit down and you look at reports like your P&L or your budget to actuals, and you're looking at those all the time, and you're monitoring regularly, and you're looking at your program cost, and you're looking at your operational cost. And so what you're trying to do is identify trends and any variances, I guess you could say, that's happening with your revenues and expenses. And so if you guys are looking at these regularly, you can see if you're tracking to hit your goals or if you're overspending, and that also informs any decisions or changes that you need to make before something catastrophic happens. And not only should this numbers person be looking at the stuff, but he or she should have a group of people looking at these things with him or her too. So having, whether it's like the accountant and the executive director looking at things, in some larger organizations, you have finance committees. So it's always good just for multiple people to look at things, because everybody's got different perspectives and they see things differently. So the more the merrier, and it helps just maintain that responsible financial management. Of course, you have a current IRS Form 990. This is one of the best documents, the most commonly asked for financial documents that funders ask for, that details out your nonprofit's financial performance. That's just the way it is. So what they see for this, and this is one of the first documents I usually look at too. So if I stumble across a new nonprofit, I'm curious about them. Honestly, the first thing I do before I go to their website is I will go to GuideStar and I will pull up their 990 and I will check them out, because it gives me an understanding of, of their numbers and seeing how they do with all of that. And so it's interesting that if I do something like that, we know that the funders are going to do that, because the funders look at it and see, and they're judgmental, essentially. They look at it and they look at your finances. And if it doesn't seem like that you have a great handle on your finances, then you probably aren't going to get funded. It doesn't matter how inspiring or how great your programs are. If you don't look like you have a handle on your money, then they're just not going to fund you, because they don't want to have to sit back and worry what it is that you're doing or not doing with your money. So just know that. And how diverse are your revenue streams? We touched on this earlier when we first started. But, it's important for funders to see that they're not the only ones that are funding what it is that you have going on. They want to see other sources that are committed to you, which shows that there is, community support and that you do have things like financial sustainability. Because, oh my gosh, one of the questions that funders like to ask that drives everybody insane. I mean, grant professionals, everybody drives them insane. It's a sustainability question. And so it goes a little something like this. What is your plan to sustain the project or your program that you're applying for after the grant? Okay, so that's all they want to know is how is what you're doing going to get funded if we pull our money out? And so you have to have really good answers for that, and you have to have a plan for that, and you have to know where that money is going to come from. Whether that's from donations or if you're going to find sponsorships for it or whatever it might be. All right, poll time again. So this time, let's pull this thing up here. Oh, I didn't share it last time, did I? Alrighty, so given everything we just talked about, tell me which of these components that we just talked about, which of these 4 components is most important for you to focus on next so that your nonprofit is grant ready. All right, so do you need to focus on your mission and your case for your support, or maybe you feel like you need to work on your programs a little bit, or maybe you saw something and went, ooh, we need to get a numbers person in here and start looking at this a little bit more. So go ahead and start clicking and let me know what it is that you think is most important for you next to get you grant ready. Give it just another moment here. All right, and close that out. I think I forgot to share it with you guys last time, so let's share it. So it looks like we're split 50-50. Some people are saying their compelling mission or their case for support, and some are saying sound financial management. So it's cool to see that some of you guys are wanting to focus more on how it is that you manage your organization and then how the things it is that you guys are doing. So well done. All right. So, Leah, where do we go from here? Here is what I'm thinking is some good stuff for you guys to do for next steps. If I were you, I would pick a section. So maybe that section, maybe you wanted to work on your sound financial management practices. So you pull that section and you find you a little group of people and you start thinking through all these things and start exploring them. And start asking your folks for input on that, because you don't want to just do it all by yourself. You want to get a diverse group of people. Like again, different people have different perspectives, and so if you can get maybe a volunteer that you trust can help provide you some impact or some feedback, or maybe you have a really close donor. You can ask donors for feedback on things like that as well, and just involve them and ask them for some feedback and practice. Okay, well, sound financial management practice doesn't have a lot of narrative, but let's go to, let's say, high quality programs. So go in there and you start drafting your responses to these commonly asked questions. And during that, you'll discover some of your strengths, you'll discover some of your weakness, and it really, it's a fun process because it just pulls the curtains back on you guys and what you do. So it's a fun process. And then once you have all these responses pulled together, share it back with those people again and ask their feedback. So, how does this sound? Is this what we want to say? What do we need to improve about this? And from that, you'll have a really, really well thought out response to these questions, and you'll be ready to go the next time that you've got to, or the first time that you have to do a grant application, or the next time you have to do a grant application. So, just make sure you're digging deeper into things and don't dismiss everything so quickly. Like make it an exercise to do, because if, like I said, even though you need it for the funders, it's a great exploratory process for your nonprofit. Whew. All right. Now, that was readiness. So time to jump over to research, which, by the way, is one of the things that I absolutely love doing. So knowing and understanding what excites each and every funder is one of the fundamentals to getting on their radar and having a better chance at being awarded a grant. And this can be accomplished through diligent and thorough research. But I want to take a moment to reflect on where nonprofits generally go wrong with research, okay? So grant research takes time. And as you know, time is absolutely something we have little of these days, right? We're all rushing around, we're all crazy. And so your role at your nonprofit, I'm going to guess it likely includes wearing many hats. And grants are probably just one of the things that you do. Or, you know, maybe that's what you do. Maybe that's all you do is write grants for your nonprofit, because, you know, I've been there. But again, time is still a precious commodity and you don't have a lot to waste. And you're always trying to balance the actual writing of the grants, and you're trying to balance the compiling all the documents and information, asking people for feedback, and you're doing about 100 other things. But where I've seen nonprofits mess up with research is not investing enough time into understanding the funder. So it's not spending enough time trying to find opportunities. It's not trying to invest enough time. It's not investing enough time trying to get to know the funder. So people either make assumptions, or even worse, they just honestly, they don't dive in deep enough to get to know who the funder is and what their purpose is and what they like to fund. For instance, I've seen where nonprofits have assumed that because a funder is located in their town, that the funder will give the nonprofit a grant, just gets there. So like, you know, there's a local foundation, or there's a foundation here in my town. And if I had an animal welfare organization, I think, oh, you know, they'll give me, Niswonger will give me some money. But Niswonger Foundation focuses mostly on youth and education and those type of things. So I would waste my time, probably, if I sent them an application. So sometimes it could be the case. You might get, you know, one of your local foundations giving you some money, but it's not always the case. And it's definitely not anything that you can rely on. So question probably is, well, where do we look for grants? Because people ask that all the time. So listed here are 4 common places. So grant databases, what I mean by that are things like Foundation Centers, Foundation Directory Online, things like Grant Station. Excuse me. And oh yeah, by the way, I just saw today that the Grant Station is offering up their services for, I think it's $99 for the whole year through TechSoup. So something you guys might want to check out. The second one there, the philanthropy accounts managed by banks. Those are not donor advised funds, which are something we have no control over, that we can't reach out to funders. But the philanthropy accounts managed by banks, there's 2 different ones that I look at. There's Wells Fargo, and then there's Bank of America. And in your handouts, there is I think it's called like free resources for research or something like that. And their links to their websites are in there. So check those out. But you can go in and you can search either by like categories, so like human services or animal welfare, or you can go in and search by state, and it'll bring up for you all the foundations that Wells Fargo or that Bank of America manages and that are trustees for these folks. So that was a cool one. I only learned about like recently, like in the last few years. So check that one out. And that one's pretty cool. Also grant related newsletters. So I sign up for a slew of grant newsletters. I get one from Grant Gopher, which by the way is another grant database that you can access for free. Grant Gopher. Grant Station also has a newsletter that I get weekly. And Foundation Center sends out their, I think it's called Philanthropy News Digest, and they send it out like every Friday. And so it's got just lots of opportunities that are available across the country. And then also I rely on general internet searches. So it is not below me to jump on Google and say, you know, grants for animal welfare in Oregon. Like I will do that, because even though these grant databases are super awesome and they give you access to over 140,000 grant maker profiles, it might miss something. Or there might be things that's in their local paper, you know, that's like a competition or something new. So definitely check out lots of different places to do your research. So when I was talking to you earlier about digging under the surface and learning more about grant funders and what they're trying to accomplish with their money, that's something you absolutely have to do. Okay, and like I said, failing to do this can truly hinder your pursuit for grants. And honestly, it might even force you to give up too soon if you get turned down too many times for grants. The good news is that we have a method that we want to share with you that will really, really help with this. And it's called the three-way fit test. So again, there's also a handout for you that we've provided. So check that out. It's got a summary of all of this information in there as well. So whether you're using things like grant databases or you're researching funders through internet searches or checking out the grant newsletters, this test will help you identify the solid grant leads. And it helps ensure your nonprofit and the potential funders that you're looking at are a good match in one of three key areas. I bet you'll never guess it. It's geographic, programmatic, and I can't say it. Philanthropic. All right, so what's the difference between each of these? So let's look at geographic fit. So funders choose to support nonprofits located in certain geographic areas. So this could be a particular city or region or state or even, nationally. So when you're doing your research, if you find that they don't fund the area you serve, honestly, you're not likely to get a grant. And so I say don't even consider them as a prospect. But if they like funding nonprofits in your city, for example, definitely, they would definitely be a match. Second one is the programmatic fit. So you have to consider a funder's mission, their goals, and areas of interest that they like, and make sure that what your nonprofit does aligns with these. Otherwise, again, you're not likely to get a grant. So, let's say you run a youth development program and you find a funder whose priority is youth. Definitely, it could be a match, but make sure you dig just a little bit deeper in there to understand them more. Because honestly, that could be one of these funders who puts all of their money into Boys and Girls Club, and you're not Boys and Girls Club. And so even though they support youth organizations, they only support one. Okay, so dig deeper. And the philanthropic fit. So with this one, find funders who award the type of funding that you're looking for. So if you need money for programs or projects or general operating support or capital, just make sure that the funder provides money for those type of things. And if they do, then that's a really good match as well. So let's say, for instance, you're seeking money for general operating support, but the funder that you're checking out only gives money for program funds. Well, it's really not a good match. So you're either going to have to change up your strategy and ask for general operating support or ask for program support, or dismiss them as a good match. And so the bottom line is that a funder should be a good fit in all three of these areas before you should even consider them as a prospect. Not 2 out of 3, not just geographic and philanthropic, not 1 out of 3, but definitely all 3 areas. And so I want to give you an example here. This is an example of a bad 3-way fit, and then I'll show you an example of a good 3-way fit. Excuse me. So I was doing some research recently for a nonprofit that's located in New York, Lutheran Counseling Services. And so they provided counseling service, so grief, marriage, PTSD, those type of things. And so they came to me looking for general operating support and program support. So I jumped into Foundation Directory online and came up with like hundreds of hits. And so one of the ones I came across was the Avon Foundation for Women. And so if you look at this, the geographic focus is a match, right? Because this foundation supports nonprofits nationally. Okay, so New York, national, good, check mark. Philanthropically, it's a match too, because they were needing general operating support money and they were needing some continuing support, some program support there. So boom, that's 2 out of 3, match. The problem I ran into though, and the one that says subjects with a big X across it, is that programmatically they did not match. So Avon Foundation for Women supports breast cancer and domestic violence, whereas Lutheran Counseling Services does their counseling services, their PTSD and marriage and grief counseling. So to me, this was not a good fit. So Avon Foundation did not end up on their prospect list. On the other hand, I checked out Long Island Community Foundation. You guys see a bunch of the green things circled here, so this is the good one. So again, geographically, boom, it's a match. They're in New York. They want to provide support to New York. Support strategies, which is what I'm calling the philanthropic, boom, match there. Program development, my client needed the program development. And then in the subjects, you'll see here, this funder, that Long Island Community Foundation, supports family services and human services, mental health care. So all in all, 3 check marks there. That was a really, really good match. So those are the type of things that you want to look for, and that's how you determine that 3-way match and get those funders onto your prospect list. Excellent. All right, poll time again. Last one. I like polls. It helps you learn who's out there and what they're thinking. All righty, so let's launch this. All right, so here is my question. Which of the resources that we talked about a few minutes ago, grant databases, the bank philanthropy databases, grant-related newsletters, or general internet searches, which of these are you going to add to your arsenal of research tools? Or maybe you're already using them. If so, just check that last one there. That's perfectly fine. All right. Got us a few responses. Wait just another second or two. This is where I wish I could key up the Jeopardy music. All righty. Let's go ahead and close this one. All right, and so results have it that most everybody wants to add the grant database to their arsenal of research tools. So excellent, good, definitely a good place to start. And with that $99 TechSoup Grant Station deal, it doesn't hurt. Oh, and also in your research tools, that one sheet that I give you is information about how to access Foundation Directory online for free as well, using their Funder Information Network. So be sure you check that out if you are interested in Foundation Directory online. All right. We're getting there. So you've done all your research and you've got this whole list of these prospects. And so you're going, ooh, where do I start? So, once you find these opportunities and you have determined they're a match, what I've noticed with people that they're inclined to just buckle down and just dive right in and get going at it. When's the next deadline? We got to hit that one. But before you do that, again, I'm going to caution you here just a little bit more. I'm going to encourage you to just take a moment and ask yourself and your nonprofit a few questions about these funding opportunities. So these are ones that I ask my grant writing clients when they want to go after grants that pop up. And it really helps nonprofit validate their decision to go after grants. So first off, are we chasing money? So if you have never heard of chasing money essentially means that we're going to create a whole different program or a whole project just for the sake of trying to get this money. And so what that does is it stretches your resources and it makes you create more work for yourselves, and you don't know if you're going to get funded for it. So if you find you're chasing the money, if you're having to create things just to try to get this money, maybe it's not the best opportunity for you. You want to find things that are going to fund programs and projects that you're already doing that's currently in your budget. Do we have the ability to give the funder what they want? Good question. So, excuse me, I see this a lot of times with providing data and reporting information, because sometimes small nonprofits can be crippled when asked for information in a new or a different way. And so when you're used to doing it one way and then the funder wants you to try it or wants you to report it to them differently, it can take more of your time, and it can also take more people to do it. So just make sure, see if you can try to understand what the funder is going to expect out of you on the front end so that you know what has to be delivered, and make sure that you can give them what they want. Then also back to that sustainability and what happens when this funding runs out. So yeah, just really, grants are, sometimes they could just be a one-time thing. You get the grant one time and boom, that's it. Funder says, thank you very much. And you have to move on. So just make sure that you can support your program or your projects after that funding runs out. Okay, good questions. So if you're sitting here saying, I want to learn more about grant research, Back a few weeks ago, we did a webinar called Grant Research 101, and it is available to you for free. So go check it out. It's available on your Project SmartSprout account. So you can just jump in there, click on the bonus training section, and key it up and listen to it. I mean, you'll hear a little bit of what I talked about today, but it goes into a lot more detail and it gives you several more tips on everything. So definitely go check that out. And the link here, it's the same thing, but I just put the link here in case, I don't know, you wanted to write it down and you just want to access it that way and you didn't feel like, I don't know, logging into your account. So definitely go check that out. It's free stuff, free grant research tips. Alrighty. So my big question to you guys, as we're getting ready to wrap up here in a few minutes, is what do you need to do to be more ready for grants? Are you ready for grants? Maybe you are. And if so, congratulations, that's awesome. But if you're not, maybe this got you thinking a little bit, like, what do we need to do? Who do I need to team up with? What kind of things will get us better prepared to go after grants? Not only better prepared, but a lot more competitive and, being able to produce some attractive proposals. So think about that. And before we move on to the Q&A, I just want to go over real quick what's getting ready to come up in the world of Project SmartSprout. So next week, my days are meshing together. February 12th is our next coaching zone. And so if you guys missed the last one, it's cool now because we've got everybody. So all of our ARF Club members and Project SmartSprout folks and clients and everything else, they're all in there. So you have access not only to Sandy and the rest of the Project SmartSprout coaches like myself, but you have access to all these other people that are in there as well. So definitely check that out, ask questions, learn a lot. Also, the next webinar is February 21st, and it's Program Development Strategies to Make Fundraising Easier, and it is hosted by me. So you get to hear me again, but I promise there's lots of juicy information in there that will help you not only with your programs, but also with grants and just kind of general donor type things as well. So not just funders, but donors as well. And then lastly, I don't know if you guys saw the fun stuff that our team has set out the last day or two, but the Donor Love Challenge. So that's going to be going on February 13th and 14th. If you haven't seen it, you need to check it out. You go in Project SmartSprout, and there's a link in the Facebook group there, a graphic. You can check it out. So during the 13th and the 14th, show your donors some love. So pick one donor or pick a few donors, go, send them a personal email, give them a phone call, whatever, just show them a little bit of love and then report back in the Facebook group. And if you do, we're going to throw your name into a drawing to win a $25 Amazon gift card, I think. So make sure you do that. That was pretty cool. I like that. Alrighty. So we will now go ahead and open up the line for any questions. And I'm going to ask Sandy if she doesn't mind to jump in here and help me a minute so I can get me a drink of water and so they can hear your lovely voice.
You betcha. Thank you so much. I love that you mentioned the Donor Love Challenge. One of the things that we want to try to do this year is to be very conscious of how Project SmartSprout works and to make sure that it's fun for you and that you're getting great results from it, and to encourage you to take action on what you're learning. We're going to throw in some challenges periodically, and this is our first one. And with it being just almost 6 weeks into the new year, you probably were asking your donors for a lot of things. You were probably communicating with them a lot around the holidays, and they maybe not have heard from you much. This is a great time to reach out. And we thought, okay, what if we make this fun, do something, and then report back and let us know what you did. It doesn't matter if you got any results from it or not. You can just come back and go, hey, I called one donor and said thank you. So that's what I did. That's great. That's enough. And your name's going to go into the hat, and maybe you might win a $25 Amazon card. So hopefully you'll have some fun with that. We're excited about it. If I still had my hands in somebody's fundraising, boy, I'd be, what I mean by that is I fairly often am helping people raise money. I'd be jumping all over that right now if it were me. All right, so let's look and see what questions you've got. We got a few minutes left. Looks like we got one, and Leah, I don't remember if you answered this one as you went, from Candace. Candace is asking about what if your revenue is so low right now that you can file a 990N? Should you file the longer form anyway?
I am not an expert about the 990s and which ones you should file. That's generally more of a question for an accountant or somebody like that. Sandy, do you have a response for that one?
I'm
What
wishing
would Greg say?
I know I'm wishing Greg McRae were here because he would know exactly. So, so there's two issues to 990s. One is, and all of you know, there's different forms, there's different kinds of 990s. So one of them is which one are you required to file? And that's definitely a question for Greg. But I think in this case, we're talking about for grant purposes, having a 990 that explains a little bit about what your organization is doing. I'm going to be really honest, Candace, if it were me, I would not do the longer form just for grant purposes. That seems like a lot of work to me, unless I had a foundation that looked like an absolute slam dunk. And I knew that if I had the longer form, I'd be like 100% likely to get that grant. That would probably, for me, be the only condition that I would do the longer form. What do you think about that, Leah?
I would agree with that because, there's a cost, right?
Yeah.
That goes into the 990 preparation. And so you really have to consider, is that cost worth the grant that you may or may not get? So, yeah.
And the cost isn't necessarily financial. The cost is, frankly, how much time it's going to take you to pull all the information together. So, yeah, I wouldn't move to the long form until I could see that the benefit is going to outweigh the cost. But it's a good question. And if you have other questions about the 990, definitely ask them in the Facebook group and tag Greg McRae, or I'll keep an eye on that as well. Candace, good job. She's in here asking questions. How do you answer the question, how will you continue to fund the program after the grant ends? What type of answer are they seeking? Excellent.
That's a sustainability question.
Yes, it is.
All right. Very good question. So generally what funders want to see are a couple sides of things. One, they want to see operationally how you're going to carry the program forward, or if the program is going to continue forward. Maybe this is like a one-time thing, or maybe it's a pilot program that you're managing. And so they just want to know, what are your plans for that program afterwards? Will it continue on? On the other side is they're curious about the financial sustainability of the program. So again, if they pull away their money, what's going to happen? And so with this response, I generally tend to focus on all the other fundraising streams that you have. So this is where it's good to have those donations, because you can say, well, we rely on donations to help bring in money to run our programs and to support our administrative needs. And by the way, we have a monthly giving program, and we have 10 donors that are given to us monthly, and so that's very consistent money that's coming in the door for us. And by the way, we're gonna go ask these certain corporations or these certain businesses to provide us with sponsorships here or there. And by the way, we also have a bunch of volunteers who, if we did not have them, we would not be able to manage our programs. And so we're going to rely on them as well. And you can also even say things like our board is totally dedicated and committed to making sure this program is something we continue to do, and that we're going to continue fundraising for it. And it's that important to us, and it's that vital. So basically you just have to show them financially and operationally how you're going to carry on that program. So the funder needs to feel comfortable of the future of the program. Is it continuing or not? And then financially, will you have the money to help it keep going?
I think that's a great answer. Nobody wants to support a sinking ship. So really what the funder is looking for here is, will that program continue on once our money is done? And that's what a lot of funders want to see. They want to give money to something either to get it started or to help build it or whatever, and then they expect you to do the work to raise the money to support it afterward. They don't want you to be reliant on grants. I can't tell you how many people have told me that give out grant money. Like they don't want to see you trying to live on your grant. And I think it's not enough, and I think William made a great point. It's not enough to say, oh, well, we're committed to doing whatever it takes. Great. What does that mean? We're committed to doing whatever it takes. And here are 4 ways that we're going to be raising money through the next year to support this once the grant money is gone. That it's almost like a little snapshot of your fundraising plan, which I think is super helpful. Great question, Candace.
All right. Well, it does look like that we are at time's up. If anybody's got any questions whatsoever, if you get off of here and you think, oh man, I should ask Leah this question, hop into the Facebook group, tag me, ask away. Don't be afraid. I'm there to help you guys out. So I hope you learned a lot and you have a few takeaways, and we really appreciate you guys being here today. And hopefully we'll see you on the next webinar.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.